There's problem by becoming rich. Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
You can wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. All right. Slightly delayed. If you hear any construction in the background, deal with it. So, Bitcoin. Nice move, breaking out of 70k. Best thing with that is that it come up to the 70k level, but then has gapped through. So this breakaway should hold for immediate continuation. And, you know, I've laid out the paths, so I won't belabor the point on these, but these are the main paths. So originally, a week ago or whatever, I said, if Bitcoin does not lose the breakout level and holds the bands, expect it to keep climbing higher, as it has done. And if this is the start, right, so if this is it now for the next couple months, then just expect the green bands to hold. It's pretty simple. And if it's going to be anything different, you'll expect the bands to fail. So this is typically the most reliable way to focus on a sharp trend versus something that is going to be more choppy, consolidative. All right, so most of your strong trends follow the green bands. When you lose the green bands, you go into several weeks of accumulation. Follow the strong bands, green bands. Once you lose the green bands, you go into several months, in this case, of consolidation or reaccumulation. So just treat Bitcoin as bullish above the green bands, just like you would do here. Right? Even though this didn't end up being bullish, if you flip bullish around here, and then you turn back to bearish or cautious over here, you don't miss anything, right? You're bullish around 67, you're back to cautious around 66, 67. It's trading. It's not future fortune telling. So, Bitcoin, my plan, buy absolutely any dips into the bands or below the bands to add swing longs on top of my spot bags. I'm just holding Bitcoin. I don't have a huge amount of interest in holding anything else at the moment because my approach is that Bitcoin dominance will continue to crush everything else as it is doing. Excuse me, give me a second. I had something in my throat there. And so that's what I'm looking at. And that's how I see it. Like, Bitcoin's going to keep crushing everything if this is a legitimate breakout. And one of the key signs that you will see as well, if this is not a legitimate breakout, you will see Bitcoin actually not performing, and you will see other altcoins moving ahead while Bitcoin pulls back, right? So how that would look is, for example, you get one of these paths. Let's say we get the blue path here. Bitcoin pushes again towards all-time high, or maybe even touches all-time high, but comes back and it starts to consolidate around the bands, maybe breaks some interim lows, and the bands are starting to compress and go towards red. And you see altcoins running much more. Well, that's a very clear sign the top's in. Very likely, yeah, nothing's ever certain. If you see this type of move will also most likely be accompanied by a Bitcoin dominance, just complete shutout, as Bitcoin takes all the capital, all the attention and everything and just rips. Now, as you get probably past 75, 80k, you will see altcoins really begin to run, right? That's going to happen. But the shutout rally will be like Bitcoin only, and everyone who doesn't have Bitcoin is going to have to sit and watch as the fucking king does its thing. Now, what's important to remember in that is that even though people don't, and this is like your most bearish path, which would be if we see a quick rejection and a weak bounce, watch for a flush down to the lows, which by the way offers a great place to buy, but is, you know, lower probability at this time. We'll see. If that comes, it's like, for me, it's like a gift. So those are some of the paths I'm looking at. Don't also discount, like, so you don't want to fall into the trap of getting like, which quite often happen. You're like, oh, as it rises more, you're like, oh, now it can't pull back, and what about all the potential for pullbacks and all that? You have invalidations. So any chance of it going back towards 60 would have required it to reject here. Since it's gone higher, I think it will come back to here, 66, 65, maybe 64 later on. And first, it will probably go up because price will get chased. People will try to short this in revenge shorting and try to fade it, which makes no sense. Because you have to remember, like, what are people saying? Even the biggest bears, the perma bears online, were like, 70k hasn't broken yet. 70k is now broken. We're above 70. Now, like, oh, well, it hasn't closed yet. Yeah, but it's at 71.5. So it's above 70. So you've had your confirmation. If it goes back below there, then you can start to say, okay, was that a deviation? Was that a lower high? Was that a whatever? But whenever the market is doing exactly what it should do in a bullish breakout, you just call a spade a spade. It's a bullish breakout. And it doesn't mean that it's a good place to get max long Bitcoin, right? Because again, if you look at these paths, one of the things that's most difficult and why I would lean towards this path, although if I'm picking one, I think this is the most likely, because I do, not that it's going to look like that, but I think it's most likely that Bitcoin will have a pullback and into December and then the rally begins proper. That's just my expectation. But if we have a faster trend, it's going to look something like this. And the reason why this kind of trend happens is because people find it extremely hard to actually get on board. Because the dips aren't deep. It doesn't sweep any lows. It only comes into the fast moving averages, the 12-21 bands. And, you know, many people don't even look at anything like that. Like, they don't use them. Right? You have to remember, like, we're all so used to using those bands. But just imagine this, like, if you don't use those bands, or you just don't have a system or a process for trading market structure or anything, how do you buy here? There's no dips, right? There's no dips. There's literally no dip. There's no dip that goes below any lows. There's no dip, there's no dip, there's no dip. And then finally there is a dip, and nobody wants to buy it. But then you have another shutout rally, no dips, no dips, no dips, one leverage flush, and then the top. I don't think this is going to happen again, by the way. Maybe not right away, because recency bias. What do people expect? The thing that happened most recently. I actually think this will be much more of a choppy kind of whichever path I'd shown there. I don't think that's going to be the one. I think it's going to be more like this, or possibly have this last shakeout. That would probably require some fuckery around the election. But if this happens, this is actually the easiest one to trade. You just have to have trust in your system. And it's really simple. You just buy the bands until it stops working. And you don't. So obviously this is for trading, right? You're already holding spot or whatever. If you're already holding spot and you're looking to trade it, anytime it goes below the daily bands, that's like your deepest correction, right? So if you're buying when it's below the daily band, now you don't just buy there every single time like this, because it can be very choppy and unprofitable. You develop a lower time frame, multi-time frame trigger. You wait for price to go below that band on the daily, and then look for some lower time frame reclaim, and then get long. And when you have strong trends, the daily bands hold, and they hold, and they hold, and they hold. And if you happen to get, I mean, there's a strong trend where it doesn't go below them. It just plays off the band itself, right? So in this trend, you get one, that's all pretty much the same phase. You get one chance to get in on the bands. You get a second chance to get in on the bands, and you catch the entire rally, right? From 50k to 73. This is not a long-term, high time frame approach. This is how you capture and follow a 1 to 3 month trend on the daily bands, the daily chart. We've already seen this, which is why it's important. Bitcoin came up, it followed the green bands, it did not respect them, it dropped below. Bitcoin came up here, look, flipped them green, held them, moved up, held them. I talked about this on the weekend with the weekend workshop for market structure. The way to follow market structure, which can also include bands, just trading trends, is to find what the market respects and continue to trade it until it does not respect that anymore. Bitcoin has just shown you it's now in an early uptrend following the daily bands. If Bitcoin's price reverses sharply here, we'll get a fresh chart. If Bitcoin's price turns around and reverses and goes like that, you're going to have everybody calling the top. However, if it's doing this, that is still respecting the daily bands. That is to buy, not to sell. if Bitcoin comes down and does this, right, and those bands become resistance, not support, that is the time to sell it and short it and blah, blah, blah.